and I am pleased to welcome to the 2025 edition of Statehouse Conversations, Democratic State Senator Rodney Pol Jr. of Chesterton, Jim Gaffigan's hometown, but he always says that's where Rodney Pol's from, so it's all perspective. Thanks for sitting down and chatting.
Absolutely.
What's on your agenda this session?
Well, this session really focusing on families, and I would consider, the working class folks that are really struggling right now. I think in the 2024 election, that's kind of what we heard. People were concerned about, being able to pay for eggs, people being, concerned about being able to pay for gas, rent. And so, with this agenda being a budget year, some of the things that I'm focusing on are, the folks that I think are going to be struggling, or prospectively struggling the most going into this next year, this next 4 years. So for me, some of the things that I'm looking at are, unemployment insurance, for example. We've had a pretty good economy. I mean, most economists are saying, hey, this Biden economy has been very, very strong. It can only last so long. You have to prepare for what happens when that wave starts to come back down. So for me, right now, looking at kind of what other states are doing and where we're at, we're the lowest. I think we're in the bottom 3 in the nation as far as unemployment benefits. So when our folks find themselves without a job or on hard times, we have to make sure that we're taking care of them. So one of my bills that I filed is to file an increase in our benefits, in our monthly benefits, so that when individuals do find themselves out of work, that they're able to still hopefully pay for their groceries, their gas, their rent. On that same line, a couple years ago, I was able to work across the aisle and get an increase in our workers' compensation benefits. And on that note, had a great discussion, kind of came to a compromise. And what we found were kind of essentially a windfall that was being given to these things called ambulatory surgical centers. And we had changed the law in order to, limit how much those ambulatory surgical centers were taking from employers as far as when employees had to get medical coverage. And we said, hey, we found all of this money. How about, that these employers, instead of just kind of just giving that, just allocating this essentially back over to the workers that need it? Because again, like our unemployment benefits, our workers' comp benefits are the lowest, and so when our folks get hurt and they find themselves out of a job, they still got to pay for that gas, the rent, the things that we've been talking about for the last year, essentially. So yeah, I've got another bill that's going to, come back 2 years later and say, hey, and this was the deal that we kind of had struck was, in 2 years we'll come back, we'll revisit this, and if the numbers that are being reported show that employers have saved X amount that we predicted, we would do another increase. So that's my hope. That's a non-budget item because this is something that's employer funded, but ultimately, yeah, that's those are where we're trying to find people that are needing help on the jobs aspect.
Are you finding much appetite for these things? I mean, we hear the drumbeat of we've got to be frugal across the board. We only have 300. I mean, there's several $100 million in the first year. The biennium projected dips to $70 million, which I hate to dismiss that as nothing, but I mean, in the scheme of things, it's not as much as certainly during the bountiful years. And it seems to be a lot of people saying cut, cut, cut. So you're saying we need to be mindful of these people who are feeling the pinch. How tough a sell is that?
It can be a tough sell, but I mean, ultimately, we've got a $44 billion budget, right? It becomes about priorities. What are we prioritizing? Are we what is our role as state government? And to me, and I think to my caucus, that is ensuring that the folks that need help actually are being able to receive that help. Some of the stuff that we do can be, might be seen as from the general public aspect as that's superfluous. You guys are, investing too much into economic development or something like that. And that's what this budget session's for. It's why it's the long session. We have to be able to sit down and have these conversations. What are we prioritizing? Are we prioritizing people that need help? Because ultimately, one way or another, we're going to pay for that. Whether that's poverty rates, increasing, whether that's, kids that, families that are struggling with health issues, crime rates end up going up. I mean, we're going to pay for it.
Somebody has to pay at some point. Whether you're showing up at the hospital needing indigent care, somebody's going to have to buy it.
That's exactly it. I mean, and that goes to kind of, plays into one of the other bills that I have, which is a paid family leave program. When we have we're talking about workforce shortages. We have jobs, but nobody's taking these jobs. A lot of that comes from, we have young families that we want to stay in Indiana, but unlike other states, we don't provide a paid family leave program, an extensive family leave program that would essentially provide several weeks of paid leave when these individuals do finally, when they start their families, when they're putting their roots here, that as far as what that means for us, that's retention, that's productivity, that's ensuring that, we're not going to lose, a mother or a father who has to stay home because they can't afford, to send their kids to childcare and then go right back to work. And it's such an important time in people's lives, having your first child or having, starting a family. That is something that, we, I think, is really, as a nation, have really struggled. And now you see other states that are picking up the slack, whereas, other developed countries, this is a given. This is something that's provided. And I think that when they look at the United States, they go, you guys, I think in Indiana, a quarter of our population, our new mothers have to go back to work within 2 weeks. Like that's,
and we certainly
that's
know
absurd.
that childcare is costly.
Absolutely.
Some have said it's more than the equivalent of a in-state tuition for
Yep.
4-year college. So
that's exactly what we've been working on the last couple of years as well. I mean, it's these, the chickens are coming home to roost, and we, as a state, it's like we've been talking about the state that works. Well, we're starting to find out it's hard to get people, into these jobs if, we're putting them in untenable situations. So this is some of the stuff that we're trying to propose that we think will benefit this. So
well, we will be watching Senator Rodney Pol Jr. of Chesterton, District 4. No one can say you're not aiming high with an ambitious agenda this session. Thank you for your passionate commitment to public service to the state of Indiana, and thank you for taking some time to chat with us about your vision for this particular session.
Jon,
Much appreciated.
Thank you.